Hi y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about batteries, and I'm still recovering from my surgery. I got the cast off and got the boot on, so now I'm more in crutch mode and not a scooter, and that's progress. It seems slow, but I'm getting there. I have, on the big battery project, I have finished making all the wiring harnesses and all the BMS harnesses, and I've built 3 more of these batteries. I have 4 to go, but I got interrupted. And the interruption is what today's video is about, because Jenny Wu contacted me and said that, Jenny Wu is the salesperson with Docon Technologies that I've come to trust to provide a reasonably priced lithium iron phosphate cell with honest communications. And she contacted me and said that her company is now going to be selling a DIY battery box kit. And she wanted to send me one with the cells to put together and see if I liked the way it went together, and if it was a product that I would use in my own system, or one that I could recommend to people who contact her to buy cells, but they might not have the technical expertise or tools to build their own boxes like I have here. And I love this box, and I want to be able to help my subscribers and people that come upon this channel to get their own energy independence. But if being able to make your own container keeps you from being able to do that, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe something like this will do it. I know there's a lot of server rack batteries out there that you can buy that are already done. I don't really like that. I think that we should, as DIYers, I think that we should be able to know how the battery goes together, and if something happens to it, know how to fix it. If the BMS goes bad, we should be able to swap out the BMS. If a cell starts to drag the battery down, we should be able to replace the cell. But one of the biggest problems I have with those server rack batteries is most of them are only 5 kilowatt hours, and if you want to put together a system that has a lot of capacity, you would end up with way too many of those. I like using the 280 amp hour cells or the 304 amp hour cells, and this box can use either of those. So let's look at it, and I want to show you how it arrived to me. And I have already taken this apart to pull this couple of screws out, and it has this packing material. These are going to be the isolators between the cells, like you've seen me use on my box. There's as we've seen on some of these other kits like this, it has a strip that goes down above each row of cells that has its own sensing wires for the BMS, and I'm gonna put together. Oh, looks like it's got its own set of bus bars here. I am going to assemble this battery probably later today. I don't always get done what I want to get done in a day, but I'm going to assemble this battery. This bag looks like it has the bus bars or the connectors for the BMS that go to the battery. It has, it looks like a fuse of some sort. That's probably an LNL fuse. And looks like we've got a fuse holder here. So I'm going to take all this apart and start assembling this today, and I'll probably make a separate video that shows how this goes together. Let's see what we've got for a BMS here. It says Alpexium, which is the same, that's the brand of this box, so I doubt that they make their own BMS. Let's see what we've got here. The wiring harness looks different than on the Seplos BMSs that I use, but that's going to be because this connects to the BMS and then connects to one of those distribution panels that comes down the center of each row of batteries. This looks identical to the connector from the BMS to the display that comes with the Seplos BMS that I use. The display looks identical to the one that comes with the Seplos BMS. And this looks familiar. Same kind of bubble wrap. This looks like a Seplos BMS, but I don't see a Seplos name on it anywhere. The model number is 48200 110110E. I believe that is the same model number that you get with the Seplos BMS if it has Bluetooth, the latest version that has Bluetooth. And this looks like it could well be a Bluetooth module. This is the only thing that looks different than the Seplos BMS that I'm used to using. And it has the same, this is going to show through the front of the box here. It has the same indicator lights, warnings, dip switches, the CAN bus, the RJ485 connectors for the communication, and then the reset button. On some of these kits that I have seen, there's an on-off switch, but it always looks like a rather small switch. I suspect that those switches are not physical switches, but rather they just go to the reset, probably on a BMS, and so they're turning the battery on and off through the BMS and not physically disconnecting it. I think I have seen one of them online on somebody's channel that shows a breaker on the front. It's an interesting concept. I don't have breakers on here because I use a breaker on the actual big combiner box that combines all of these. What I do have on mine that I find to be important is a Class T fuse. So let's look over here at my battery. And you know, the cells and the BMS. But on the BMS that I use on my battery, it's got the same indicator lights. It looks identical to the BMS that comes with this kit, and then the same communication ports, and then the reset button is right down here. What mine has, which I find to be important, I believe to be important, is a Class T fuse. These are getting more and more difficult to come by. There seems to be a global shortage of these, but and they've gotten more expensive as a result. But I think that I'm going to have to look at the fuse, the rating of the fuse that comes with this kit. A lot of these kits that I've seen and those server rack batteries have no fusing at all, but I think that we probably need to consider having a Class T fuse on these batteries in case anything were to really happen. And so then another comparison that I have is that this battery that I build has easy access. And this battery, if you want to get inside it, you're going to need to pull a lot of screws. I will probably, well, I will put this battery on the same kind of flat rolling dolly that these are, because when this goes together, it's going to weigh similar to this. I'm not sure if this wood enclosure is lighter than this steel enclosure. It may be lighter by a few pounds, but it will be in excess of 200 pounds. It'll be, 220 or 30 pounds probably. And that's this. Now this battery kit does have these steel handles recessed in. I think that's a great feature, so that 2 or 4 people can lift this battery. But I will just put it on a dolly prior to putting the cells in it before it gets heavy, so that once it becomes heavy, it will be mobile. Jenny Wu also sent me the cells for this, and they come. This is a, she says, a newer batch of Eve 280 amp hour cells. This will work with 280 or 304s, and they were shipped to me with in a UN box with all the proper labeling, which makes it more expensive. But at least the person that's delivering them to you knows what they're delivering. I have used other suppliers who ended up sending me stuff in boxes that were not labeled. She sent me 16 cells for this battery and a couple of others. So this is a couple of others that she sent me for another purpose. But these are the 16 cells she sent me. And I typically test every cell that I receive. But right now, I'm having to top balance the cells for 7 batteries that I'm building. I've got 3 of them that I've built in the last week or so, and I have 4 more to build, plus this one. And if I take time to test all these cells, it would take about a day for each 2 cells, so that would eat up about 8 days. And if I do that, I'm going to not be able to put more batteries together, because I use the same equipment, the same chargers and testers. I use the same equipment to put the energy into the battery cells to top balance prior to putting a battery together. So I had the idea that I would just spend a day testing 2 of these cells at random. So I tested these 2 cells prior to top balancing this. I tested these 2 cells, and the first one I tested came up at 284.6 amp hours, and the second one came up at 283.5 amp hours. And then I went ahead and top balanced this, and I know that most of the people who would be interested in buying this box, and most of the people that buy cells, don't invest in the equipment to test them. The EBC A40L tester, which is around $300 if you buy it from China, and I use an old laptop to connect it to. It can be used without connecting it to a computer, but it's much more clunky to do that. And so and doesn't have the visual charting that happens when you connect it to a computer. I know that most people are not going to test their cells. So I decided, let's just put this thing together. And once we get it together, we'll top balance these cells and then put it together. And once we get it together, Then I'm going to test its overall capacity, and I'm going to be able to look at the display and see how the cells run with each other as the state of charge goes down and as the state of charge goes up. And I'll be able to monitor what kind of differential, and if I get a runner, if I have a runner in this batch of cells that reduces the overall capacity of the battery, I'll be able to know that. And then I'll make a video and show how the test results ended up. Just buying the cells, top balancing them. I think that's always important. I know that some people think you can just put them in there and eventually, it will top balance itself, or they put in active balancers, which I'm not a fan of at all. I think if you just buy decent cells, put them together with one of these good commercial BMSs, they have a rather small balancing potential, but all you really need unless you have terrible cells. And so I think that if we put this together and test it, we'll know if it's possible to have a good result by just buying a ready-made box and a set of cells from a reputable supplier and just put it together and see how that works out. And then I suspect that what I'll want to do is when I'm finished commissioning my overall big system, I will probably go ahead and tie this battery in and see how it operates. I expect that it will operate the same as all the ones I have, but I'll see how it performs, and I'll use a thermal imaging camera on it and see how these, twisty bus bars work relative to the 1/0 cable that I use on my battery builds, and see how the bus bars work relative to the bus bars that I use that come with the battery build. Let me show you how this last thing is. I want to show you how these batteries arrived to me. They came with this package that I'm becoming more familiar with, and inside this package are a couple of insulated tinned copper bus bars and 4 nuts. And then these look a little bit different than what I've received before. These cells actually come, I haven't seen this before, they actually come with colored insulators on the battery cell and a little plastic wrap around the battery cell. I'm not sure why they started doing that. And then the cells themselves, those come out easier. They're not so tight. I get tired of fighting these cells out of the foam because the foam is too tight. This seems to be a little easier to get out. And then the cells, I just routinely get really good cells. They seem to be really flat, as you can see. And I don't, sometimes I'll get find a tiny little dent or nick in them, but inconsequential, nothing that damages the cell to a worrisome degree. Sometimes I think when they get handled, they bump against each other when they're handling these cells. This one looks pristine, and almost all of them will. And so here's what you can expect. I'm not sure if I'm going to go ahead and release this video and then another video with the testing. What I may do is hold it until I can do the testing and then release that all together. But there'll be a separate video that I'm going to make about putting this together. And because I don't edit these videos, hit the like button, please. Because I don't edit these videos, I'm not sure if I'm going to show you the entire build process. I'll probably put it together to a certain point and then show you how it's going, and and let you know what I found along the way. And if there's anything that I think you need to know if you're putting one of these together to make it go more smoothly. Not all the instructions on these things aren't always great. Often it's done by pictograph, and so I'll let you know how I found it to be putting this together, and I will release that video shortly as well. So that's all I have for this one. I don't think I've forgotten anything. These cells have already been top balanced, so they're ready to go in here. So I think as soon as we sign off, I might just get to work putting that together, and we'll see you soon. I hope if you haven't subscribed already, you'll consider doing so. And please like the video. If you hit that like button, don't forget, if you hit that like button, it's the best thing you can do to help me with the channel. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.